been overlooked by scientists. It has been reported that the sea has receded from its former shoreline. That is to say, that after the tsunami, the sea has settled down again, but it has not returned to its former level on the beach. Some years ago, after a major earthquake in Nicaragua, it was reported that the sea level offshore had dropped 20 feet. After the great earthquake in Lisbon on November 1st, 1775, it was reported that the land rose, leaving boats exposed on the seafloor. Early Sunday morning on September 18, 1994, two large earthquakes rocked Rabaul, increasing in intensity throughout the day. By late evening, parts of the shoreline began to rise. The coral reef off Rabaul surfaced and people feasted on trapped fish and other marine life. Darwin would have called that condition a raised beach. In all these cases, it was reported that the land raised. The illusion here is not that the land rose. What really occurred was that the sea level receded. Darwin studied raised beaches all around the Pacific and on the South American mainland. It had never occurred to him that the opposite could be true. The sea was
Old Harbor, Jamaica. The name Old Harbor tells us a story. Hundreds of years ago, during the Spanish occupation, Old Harbor was the main port of Jamaica. Ships of every European nation passed through here on their way to and from the Spanish Main. The ships and their crews were searching for gold and a passage to the east. An active reciprocal trade was also taking place at that time. Ships returned to Spain loaded with cargoes of lard and hides. Jamaica's first export was lard and hides, not the famous rum for which it is known today. In 1494, when Columbus landed at Seville on the north coast of Jamaica, he released a few head of cattle and some pigs on the island. By the time the Spaniards returned in 1503, they had multiplied into millions of heads. They roamed the island freely, living off the lush grasslands. Lard was obtained from boiling the pigs, and cows were slaughtered indiscriminately for their hides. Old Harbor is still busy today, but the traffic is in cars, trucks, and carts. The little town is constantly jam-packed from one end to the other, creating a bottleneck in the main road that passes through the town on the way from Kingston, the capital city. Hundreds of years ago, ships stopped coming to Old Harbor. The reason is that over that same time, the sea has receded steadily, deserting the Old Harbor forever. The sea is no longer here. As you can see, the traffic here today is of a different nature. All sorts of trading takes place now in this teeming town center, far away from the sea. No one would ever believe that the sea once covered this area where I now stand. Today, Old Harbor is a market and trading town on Jamaica's south coast, the sea miles away. You can see immediately that it is a busy inland metropolis remotely related to the sea that once made it a harbor. Over 500 years, the harbor has disappeared. The sea has receded a distance of 2 miles from where I now stand. The sea's recession was not noticeable over that period for several reasons. First of all, it did not take place all at once. The progress was slow and timely, but relentlessly progressive. Over the successive hundreds of years, the slow recession of the sea sealed the fate of Old Harbor as a harbor anyhow forever. Today we are going to follow the progress of the sea's recession. I'm going to show you the path of progression by driving from here down to the sea. I'm going to show you where the sea is today in relation to where I now stand. I will take you along on a visit to the new coastline to show how much the sea has receded. As you can see, we are now in open country, and the land is graded gently, almost level, as it slopes towards the coast. If this land was not covered with shrubbery, trees, and houses, you would be able to see the gentle slope of the land. In the American Southwest and in Mexico, such a slope is referred to as a bajada. It is a gentle slope which was formerly the continental shelf under the ancient seas that cover the earth. The entire earth was once covered with the seas, so this recession of the sea is not peculiar to Old Harbor in Jamaica. It occurs all around the world, as I've shown in my other videos. All these dwellings and all this development has been erected over centuries as the sea receded further and further with each passing year. So as we are driving down to the seacoast today, we are driving over lands that were once under the sea. You can see the vast expanses of land and all the buildings that have been built up successively over the years since the Spaniards arrived in Jamaica. All this land we can see, looking in all directions, was once under the sea. We are now arriving at the seaside, which as you can see is still receding. We can see even now that houses are being built further and further out onto the flats. The land is taken over or captured by the residents as fast as the sea recedes. After residents have lived here for years, they forget where the shoreline was. Others coming after will have no knowledge of the shifting shoreline for a number of reasons. First of all, there are no sustained observations being made of the phenomenon. This is due to the lack of awareness that the anomaly even exists. Generally, residents are not aware that the sea recedes. Those residents who build houses on the mudflats today are aware that the sea has left this land behind. Those who come years after, however, will not be able to detect the phenomena because development will have erased the evidence. For example, 30 years ago, I visited this area and saw at first hand houses being built on stilts over the mudflats left behind by the receding sea. Today, these houses appear to be well established. No one would suspect that only a few short years ago, the sea was right here where I now stand. We spend very little time observing the sea and her movements. The reason for this is because we ourselves have very little time to do just that. Secondly, and most importantly, is the outward and inward movement of the tides on a daily basis. This subtle movement of tides conceals or clouds detection of the sea's recession. One is never quite sure where the sea is at any one time of the day or night. That is mainly how the mystery of the receding seas is perpetuated. In 100 years, this coastline will be perhaps another quarter-mile away. The residents will, however, know nothing of the change because of these deceptive subtleties of the sea. On the other hand, a new generation will by that time be living here where we stand today. Each new generation comes along and sees the sea. They accept it as they see it where it is. The gradual recession is not noticed over a generation. The next generation comes along and the process is repeated. The ongoing concept is that the sea is unchanging, that it is constant, that is in the same place at the same level. But in reality, it is not. It has receded. We are all constantly being deluded year after year, time after time, century after century, by the mysterious receding seas. Receding seas.